I'm Patrice Nsoga Mahob, Manku Kakhakbe Njepom. What I did this is going back 6 generations just to show you that I've never forgot where I came from.
Tell us about your childhood, growing up, the circumstances, and any memories you'd want to share.
So talking about childhood, I'm a third born of a working family of 7, the third boy, and I have also 2 older sisters, younger sisters, and 3 brothers. So I was born in Cameroon. Looking a little bit into my childhood, well, I was fortunate enough to be born in a family where the father believed deeply in education. My parents always made sure that we know our roots. So between the age of 2 and 4, we always spend the time with our grandparents. So I had an opportunity to meet not only my grandparents, but also my great-grandparents. So those factors actually later on play a big thing in me growing up. Yes, well, there is one particular memory that comes in mind. It me not always willing to spend time or to stay with my age mates. And I do remember one instances where my dad said, well, why are you here? Will you mind going and playing with your brothers and age mates outside? And then there was one of my uncles who was a military colonel there who kind of interjected and said, no, let the young man here, this is the way he's learning, and that's how he will be wise tomorrow by hearing some of the things that we are saying.
Okay. What is the reason for your chosen profession, how it all started, the experiences, and your career journey so far?
My current profession right now, it's a geophysicist, but I didn't actually start being a geophysicist. Okay. My first profession was a civil engineer. Okay. So I was trained, and my first master was in civil engineering, and had an opportunity to work for 7 months only. Luckily for me, I had also to do an interview with the National Oil Company in Cameroon back then. Okay. So within the same time, I was selected to come and do the final test so that I could start with them. And after 7 months, actually, I quit my job as a construction site civil engineer to join the National Oil Company as an engineer trainee. Okay. And from then, spent 6 months in the National Oil Company. And while I was there, I know that growing up, I was always, troubled by the petrochemistry. So that's something that I wanted actually to do. But while being with the National Oil Company, I learned a little bit more about various fields. Okay. And decided actually to focus on geophysics. Okay. And there were scholarships offered back then by Phillips Petroleum when wrote the test. These also all the psycho-technical test, and I was selected to go do a master's in the US. Okay. That's how everything started. Okay. And from there, after completing my master's, instead of going straight to work, I just had that golden opportunity. There was one of the well-known and recognized geophysicists who was also coming to join the faculty, okay. Dr. Castagna. And I even interviewed him as one of the senior grad students there. So when I learned that he was coming to join the faculty, I decided also to go for my PhD. That I've self-founded. Okay. Yeah, through some teaching assistantships, some private scholarships as well, and weekend jobs. I can break my career or my work into like four phases.
Okay.
Well, the first one will be first as a weekend geophysicist, as appointed during my master. So that's the first category. And the second category will be as a summer worker, where I was working in between semesters during the summers. So that will be the second category. The third category will be as a consultant.
Okay.
Yeah, and then the fourth one will be as a full-fledged, full-time employee geophysicist.
Okay.
So at least the first three categories were fairly short, but although I learned a lot during those phases, that's why I do really want to break it into those categories.
Sure.
First, as a weekend geophysicist, I was working while doing my master's with one independent, acquiring seismic data. Of course, for him, it was an advantage because it was a cheap labor for him. But for me, it was also some good money, although I had my scholarship, but that extra money helped actually do many things, like supporting my younger siblings back in Cameroon, or realizing also some of the little projects that I had on the side. So the weekend works with Pathfinder. I learned a lot, so that's what you call actually starting from the ground, because we went to the field, I put my boots and learned how to stomp the geophones on the ground, because that's critical. All the seismic data comes from geophones that are being stomped on the ground, and also learn how to survey. So that was very critical for me. So I started from that, and even up to today, there are people who can finish their career as a geophysicist without doing that. As a summer worker, that gave me a chance to start managing small projects. You have 3 months, they give you a project, you have to define the scope, come up with a methodology. If there is a critical issue, you have to solve it and then present. So I had a total of 4 or 5 summer jobs. One as I was completing my master's, and then 4 when I was doing my PhD. So I had to do summer work with Chevron twice in California. Also went all the way from Norman, Oklahoma to Anchorage, Alaska for another summer work with BP. And then did another one with ConocoPhillips in Ponca City. So I did really learn a lot, and that gave me also an opportunity to apply some of the techniques that I was learning, or some of the one that I was actually creating as a PhD candidate myself. The third one was as a consultant. So I also had an opportunity to work as a consultant on a project all the way to Mexico, from Norman, Oklahoma to Villahermosa, Mexico, where I was going and training actually some of the state-owned employees on some of the techniques. And the interesting things here is that I had to do it in 2 different languages. Wow. Not only English, but Spanish as well. So that gave me, once again, there was a challenge to reconnect with my Spanish that I learned in high school. So as a consultant, I did that also. And then as a full-time now, that's where everything that I've learned started coming into place. So when I completed the PhD, I decided to join BP.
Okay.
And my condition to join BP was for them to send me to Alaska. And they did exactly that. And people will ask why a young African used to warm weather will choose to go all the way to Alaska, where sometimes the temperature is minus 20, minus 47, even to the North Slope.
Wow.
You know, when you want to excel, sometimes it's good to do uncommon things.
Yeah.
Because when you do common things, you are just an average, and you may not always see all the opportunities. So I went to Anchorage and spent 3 years. Very rewarding 3 years. And during the second year of my stay there, actually my team got rewarded with a company award, a BP company award, in excellence in one of the projects we were working on.
Okay.
So that was for me a very rewarding experience as a young professional. 2 years with a company, here we are on the spotlight worldwide.
That's good.
So that's how I spent 3 years in Alaska. And then my time came now to move on, came down to Houston. In Houston, I was started to work with the North American gas team.
Okay.
Another interesting asset that was dying actually at the time because it was old. It was an old asset looking after old fields, gas field. But just 1 year prior to joining that asset, they put in place one plan to resurrect the asset. And one of the plans was actually to reshoot or to acquire new seismic data.
Okay.
And to use that seismic data to locate the new drilling locations. And in 3 years, we drilled, by the time I was leaving the asset, we have drilled 40 wells.
Wow.
And then there were 40 more locations that are proposed that were to be drilled. So that was also a good achievement for the team. And after 3 years, it was time for me to move to more challenging things. And here comes the Gulf of Mexico deep water.
Wow.
So I joined the Atlantis asset then, and some work has already started. A field was discovered, and it was a matter now of bringing the field into production.
Okay.
So I was part of it, designing some of the wells that will bring the field into production.
Okay.
And that field was then in 2007 the deepest field for BP.
Okay.
Offshore Gulf of Mexico. So I was part of it once again, bringing more gas into play and also trying to improve the data use, at least to understand the subsurface. And so that gave me a total of 9 or 10 years with BP. I joined BG Group in the UK. They gave me the opportunity then to go to Nigeria, where I spent 2.5 years working there, training and sharing knowledge with some of the young geoscientists and professionals.
Okay.
So from Nigeria, went back to the UK, Reading, still with BG.
Okay.
And then an opportunity came to go to Egypt. So went to Egypt. Unfortunately, we couldn't stay there too long. Rather than going for 3 years, I was there only for 2.5 months because that coincided with the second revolution.
Oh, okay.
So we were back to Reading in the UK, where I stayed, but I always felt like my place wasn't to be in the US or in the UK. I wanted to
come back to Africa.
To Africa. And Tulo gave me that opportunity. That's how I came to Ghana and joined Tulo Ghana from 2014 until June 2018 when I decided to quit Tolo and set up my own consulting firm in June 2018. So June 2018 to October 2018, that was kind of my sabbatical months, 3 months of sabbatical, setting up the consulting firm and then looking for more opportunities on the continent. The Springfield group came up knocking. Of course, I had a personal relationship with the CEO of Springfield, Kevin Oshere, who convinced me to come back. So I came back to Ghana in late October, early November, to join Springfield Group, where I am now as a principal geophysicist, advising and conducting all the geophysical support.
What motivates or inspires you to greater achievements?
I've always been an admirer of an Indian philosopher called Rabindranath Tagore, who always says that the one who plants the tree, knowing that he will never sit in the shade, has started understanding the meaning of life. I'm saying that those are the things that are inspiring to me. That's self-inspiring. Okay. So you have, for example, that Indian philosopher that I read a lot, and I also have the late Nelson Mandela, okay, who is also one of my inspiring role model. And as he used to say, you know, a winner is always a dreamer who never gives up. Okay. So that's the second one. And the third one is also another inspiring role model for me. It's Martin Luther King Jr. And when I mention Martin Luther King Jr., there are actually two kings generally that keeps me moving. It's the one about perseverance, never give up, as well, who he used to say when he was giving his speech that if you cannot fly, at least run. And if you cannot run, at least walk. And if you cannot walk, at least crawl, so that you never stop. Keep on moving.
What are some key moments and achievements on your career journey?
The first achievement I can be proud of are actually the social achievements. Okay. My social achievements come with the fact that I always want to see an extra smile on someone that I don't know's face. That precisely children, orphans, the weak, the less fortunate. And the way for me to do that is I decided to focus on education. Okay. Yes. So the other thing for me, it's is also with youth in general, precisely young professionals, okay, through mentoring, coaching, knowledge sharing. So that's what I will group into the second achievements. For me, those are really important to me. And then now comes my achievement professionally, where early on, I was fortunate enough to be part of teams that got awarded or recognized company-wide based on our innovative ways of thinking. Yeah, so those are some of my key achievements that I can point out. And the other one that I would like also to add when it comes to socially, also inside me there is a part of art that I know that is there, and I always also want to promote more art and promote artists. Okay. Yeah, so far I've done that through music. Where either in the US, in France, in the UK or Germany, some upcoming artists have promoted and produced some young artists, the like of Now not upcoming anymore, the Bleak Bassi. And here in Ghana we have actually two. Lelo, now known as Dr. Lelo, a medical doctor. And then Tinea, who is no more under my wings, but I was the one who brought her to Ghana, and I'm happy to see that seed growing up and burgeoning right now. So there are really two key achievements that I would like to bring out. The one that happened here in Ghana. First, while I was with Tolo, as a head of geophysics, or the lead geophysicist for Jubilee, we had to reshoot or to acquire the first 4D seismic data. Well, in our jargon, what we call 4D seismic data is when you shoot the same seismic over time. So you bring another component into it. That's where the 4D comes into. So I was the company coordinator for it. Okay. So all that went well, and the campaign also was completed successfully. The data that we acquired was good data that we use, and that gave also an uplift to the asset. Okay. So for me, that was really a good achievement. Okay. Having been the coordinator of the first ever 4D seismic shot in Ghana. Wow. Yes. And as I said earlier, I'm also a principal geophysicist for Springfield now. I was the one who chose the final location of Afina 1X that in November 2019 was a discovery of significant hydrocarbons. And that well is so important not only for the country, but also for the continent. Why? Because this is the first time an African independent has gone deep water, offshore, drill a well. The well has been a discovery, and not only any kind of discovery. We do think that it's a commercial and significant discovery. Okay. And being the person behind that, for me, on my humble person, I do think that as a very big achievement, okay, particularly for all the young geoscientists around who participated and who can now believe in themselves and knowing that things like that also actually can be done on the continent by Africans. Great.
Can you share details of some of the activities you engage in and the social impact you've made?
I said earlier, my focus has primarily been on education. So education has always been a big part of my life, and that from childhood. At least my parents believe in education. So I've spent most of my energy in that, also making sure that not only me but people around me are educated or can be or have an opportunity to be educated. So I created a foundation called MADE Foundation, and MADE here meaning make a difference in education foundation. That was created in 2005. Okay. And since then, the first focus was in the US, mentoring and motivating minorities to go into mathematics, science, and shifted that into Cameroon, where I created scholarships in the primary and secondary levels, and so far I sponsored 135 students. And I'm proud to say that this year I'm having my first batch of sponsored students completing high school. So from that, my goal is to pick and choose the best and try to support them with their tertiary education. Okay. So MADE Foundation has done that in the US and in Cameroon. Okay. And now I'm focusing here in Ghana. That is also home for me. Okay. And the beginning of this year, I've adopted a private primary school. Okay. Yeah. called Happy Home Academy,
Okay.
and it's at Axib in the Western region.
Okay.
So far, we decided to make sure that at least the logistics are there.
Okay.
So we just completed with the first batch of logistic being supplied, student desk,
Okay.
teachers desk, and teachers chair.
Okay.
So that has been completed, and starting next month, the next step is picking up with the tuition of all the students until the end of the school year.
What one thing would you want to be known for whenever your name is mentioned?
I call it philanthropy, others call it generosity.
Thank you so much, Doc.
It was nice, Emmanuel. Thank you for your time.